Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today we're doing an in-depth review of HELA Tier 3, one of the coolest characters we've seen all year. Visually, has really gorgeous skills, and also is very unique in terms of playstyle and what you can expect from her. Because, like I said in my initial thoughts video, a lot of people were pegging her as just a PvP type character because of the uniform effect. And that's not untrue. She is good for PvP in different ways, but she's also very good for PvE, but also very quirky is the word I want to use. So we're going to go through the build here first. I'll explain everything, and then we'll go into some gameplay. So my rank is 290. It's not amazing. As you'll see, it's partly because I don't have any Odin's Blessings yet. I don't have any CTP. I'm doing this to gauge and sort of set your expectations for PvE and PvP. And what I will say in summary of that is she's going to exceed your expectations with a sort of bad build or a half build in PvE, but she will probably come under your expectations or sort of deliver below your expectations for PvP if you don't give her a max build. Now, we've sort of said this for a while now in PvP. Since basically Sentry came out, you can't really get away with half-assing your PvP builds for any characters, right? It's not just Wolverine. It's like pretty much any character. You have to build them for PvP nowadays if you expect them to do well. But HELA has such a gigantic advantage against heroes that some people were sort of, quietly in the back of their minds hoping, crossing their fingers, maybe I can get away with a budget build for HELA for PvP. So I don't think she's going to give you a budget PvP experience. However, I do think she will give you a budget PvE experience. So no Odin's Blessings, no offensive Uru outside of the energy attack, and 2 crit damages, so we could definitely go higher there. I'm not even capped. I've got 56% crit rate and 170 crit damage, and I believe she does not have a frenzy buff. So keep that in mind as well. This HELA does not have a crit damage, all attack, all defense buff. So you do need to worry about hitting that 75% crit rate and hitting close to that 200% crit damage if you are going to be using her for PvP. The rest of the build is pretty straightforward. I've got Power of Angry Hulk ISO 8 set, Hawk's Eye, Overdrive, those are all just fine. We do not have the artifact, which is basically only for PvP. It's a Immortality Wolverine Null artifact. And then I do have a Guard Break Invincibility Obelisk, and this will be to show you that you really can't get away with a budget build for her in PvP. However, PvE is a different story, which is I'm pleasantly surprised with. So there is the rotation, or there is the roles on the options on her uniform. We've gone mostly PvP except for the last one there that basically only has offensive stats for energy attack. We've got Captain America Sam Wilson, which is an excellent option. Domino, which I said was a good option in my previous optionals video, so I'm glad to see it sort of make a return here. I think that's the last option that it can be available for. I think it's clogged at 7 now. We have the new Scarlet Witch, also an excellent option. We have War Machine Infinity War. This one hurts. This one's kind of a kick in the pants. But then we have Valkyrie. So 4 out of 5, in my opinion, 3 out of 5 fantastic options, 1 out of 5 okay options, and then 1 out of 5 kind of bad options. But that's the build. Now let's talk about why she is quirky. I was originally going to show you that she was quirky in Null World Boss Legend, but I actually want to show you some Null gameplay afterwards, so I don't want to overdo it with one boss. But basically what I'll show you here against Cull, it basically achieves the same thing, is that she does very little damage on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then extremely high damage on 6. There are other characters like this, but you can see here, a bar and a half is really not cutting it nowadays for characters in the tier 3 category or the transcended category. I've done about 3 bars of damage in 15 seconds, which for a double support plus her own lead of 60% energy attack, this is not really blowing anyone out of the water. This is not really that impressive. She has all defense down. She has paralysis, so she can apply her buffs for longer because Cull Obsidian has not gone into his debuff mode yet. There's just a lot of 22% Pierce. Let me remind you about that. There's not a lot going on, right? You're not really that impressed. But then we're going to go ahead and we're going to pop the tier 3. And you're going to be like, whoa, what's going on? Yeah, so the tier 3 just went ahead and took him from about 13.5 bars down to 5 bars. Honey, that's a lot of damage. Yeah, it is a lot of damage. I don't know what that voice was, but I'm picturing that guy on TikTok who's like, were you going to put the bottle there? He's really funny. Anywho, off topic. That's a lot of damage, right? Cue the Italian guy being like, that's a lot of pasta, or like, stereotypical Italian, like, that's a lot of meat sauce. So she basically does a bucket ton. You probably can imagine the word I really want to use. She does a bucket ton of damage on 6, and that's it. The only thing you need to remember to do is you have to press 3 before you press 6, just like Doom, very much like Doom. And then you probably also, if you want to be safe, press 4. The reason why you press 4 and you make sure you get 4 off, I just goofed up the rotation here, is because you want to, let me just reset here. 4 gives her skill damage, bonus damage. It's kind of awkward. She doesn't have skill damage, bonus damage on her passive. She also doesn't have any ignore dodge on her passive, so a CTP of energy, a double ignore dodge obelisk, or a mighty CTP of destruction would all be very attractive proc options for her. But basically, with no ignore dodge. But basically, what you're gonna do here is you're going to set this up. I'm actually going to skip the 3 here, and then I know I'm gonna get hit here, so I let him hit me, and then I go into 4, and then I go into 6. So just like I think it's Sharon and Cersei, we abuse the guaranteed hit. There's like a guaranteed spike attack that Null does at 4 minutes and 44 seconds. I'm abusing that to get off a crazy, fully accumulated buff. Here he's gonna smack me, and then we're gonna pop the 6 again. And yeah, you can just see this is bonkers damage, absolutely disgusting, right? Really top-notch damage. You also want to pause a little bit in between some of her attacks in the last part of this chair phase, because Null will hit you with the tentacles if you're not in iframe. So here, I would just hold the tier 3 because it does all her damage, and just hope that we can get through. But as you can see, this is why HELA is quirky. She's not doing any damage, right? So we should have finished. If I pop the tier 3 right away, we finish this in 4:05. We finish in 55 seconds. For a character with their own lead and no obelisk, like no damage proc, no Odin's Blessings, to finish in under a minute is very good. So that's really good. But as you can see, I lost 10 seconds, almost 15 seconds. I lost 10 seconds just standing around doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because it doesn't do any damage. All the damage is on 6. So that's why she's quirky. This is definitely not going to appeal to every kind of player, but this is basically what you can come to expect with your HELA. Now we're going to do this here because we know he's going to hit us. Actually, I'm not even sure if he did hit us, but it doesn't matter because she just does so much damage. It's insane. Or I guess she doesn't do so much damage. That was a little sus. Okay. Yeah. But it's basically all on the 6. So I'll go through the rotation one more time before we back out here. But I think the best rotation for her to minimize her iframes is you're going to do 4, 3, cancel 5. I don't know why I can't cancel the 3 first before the 5, but that is basically what you want to be doing. And then when you want to take hits, ideally you want to press 3, get hit a couple times, and then cancel into another skill. But as you can see, when she gets that accumulation, it's the Sharon Rogers accumulation. So it does massive amounts of damage. I tried other playstyles before I started recording this video. I tried basically spamming her other skills. Like, you know, let's just try pressing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 really fast. You know, don't even care about your proc, whatever, just to line up and get as many tier 3s as possible, sort of maximize the number of tier 3s. Because that kind of makes sense, right? All of her damage is on the tier 3, so you want to maximize that. However, it doesn't really work. Here, we're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot to get a little bit further, because now we're not going to have the tier 3 available. But you can see she can do this very easily, very safely. She heals herself. She doesn't take much damage. But it's all in the 6, right? But yeah, that's sort of the breakdown for her PvE wise. I will give her an obelisk later on in the video so you guys can see what that looks like. One thing to note for HELA for PvE content is that for World Boss, she is unusable against Mephisto after stage 9 up to the 40s, because it's heroes, then it's male types, then it's humans, it's human heroes, and then it's combat types. I can't press this fast enough. And then it's female heroes, and then it is leadership characters. So HELA is like, just like Supergiant, just like Proxima, she's not usable at all. So unfortunately, accumulation characters are really good against Mephisto because he ignores your iframes and he does that chip damage. But yeah, she can only go up to stage 9 against Mephisto. However, she does really well. She can clear stage 9 Mephisto. I'll actually show you guys because I think it's actually quite impressive. It is stage 9, but it's more a reflection of how much damage she's doing on my account. So that's kind of the important part here. We're not going to use strikers because we don't need strikers versus Mephisto because there's no ignore dodge or sort of thing. Obviously, fire reduction, fire resistance strikers would be good, or damage reduction. But just note how much time this takes. Okay, we're gonna do that, then we're gonna do that, go back to 4. She hits the ground 3, 5, 2, get hit a bunch of times, 3, 4, get hit, and then we're gonna pop this. Bonkers damage that we can't even see because it's off screen. So we don't get the we don't get this first, we don't get the kill before the first animation here with Doctor Strange, but this is actually normal. Even though it's all the way down to stage 9, this is actually normal. I was actually surprised when I tested other characters, and they were the same. So you can see here, he actually goes into his next phase very early on in her tier 3 skill, very early on. So she almost does enough damage to skip the Doctor Strange phase because he didn't have that much HP left. It's hard to tell because you can't really see, right? But here's the thing. Here's the crazy thing. I'm gonna swap her for Scarlet Witch, not Super Giant. Scarlet Witch has a ABX build with multiple Odin's Blessings and a CTP of Rage, okay? Now check this out. Check out how long it takes her. Scarlet Witch is not the best World Boss Ultimate character. Transcended characters are obviously going to have a bit of an advantage here, but I'm testing tier 3, so I decided, let's test it against a tier 3 here. So we're going to go ahead and do this and do this. We lost a couple of seconds at the beginning to him sort of teleporting around, but sure. We're going to do our best here. And this is not to diss Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is a great character in her own right, but just to show you that that time was actually really impressive for HELA. This was actually really good. I was actually surprised. She did it as fast as Doctor Doom did, which again I was also surprised at. So again, Scarlet Witch doesn't have enough damage to skip this phase, even with a Rage CTP and a full, like almost full stacks of Odin Blessing. And then as you can see here, he takes quite a few hits before he transforms. So HELA's doing that much damage on her own, which is bonkers. So I really think that she's going to be, really an eye-opener for you in PvE, even with a mediocre build. So let's check out PvP now. I don't know how this is going to go, but I wanted to try this out. This is against Butt Ripper, the rank 2 Vibranium player. He's got 2 heroes and then HELA of his own. This team is kind of ridiculous that I'm using, but I just want to show you what you can expect. Defense-wise, she's taking basically no damage from Sentry here, which is very impressive. Let's see if she can do the same against Wolverine. But this team here doesn't even have debuff. So it's a team that's basically just stacking as much damage reduction as possible to just be as tanky as possible for HELA. It's working, obviously, which is pretty cool. However, the one big weakness that HELA has is the same weakness that Colossus has. Molecule Man. Molecule Man just counters, outright counters, and completely shuts down and ignores her uniform ability. And without her uniform ability, there's basically no go. On top of the fact that, that was impressive, don't get me wrong, that was really cool. But on top of the fact that you can't fight villain teams. We'll try this team here. It was originally a different team when I checked like 2 minutes ago. It was Doom with HELA. But basically, she'll do well against Sentry, but then she'll be, paper hands against Doom because all of those buffs are only applying to heroes, not applying to villains. In this case, she's still going to keep Ebony's buff and Colossus's buff, but let's see. So this is actually more impressive than I thought. I didn't actually think of this team originally. I think I had HELA with Wasp and Colossus, or Wasp and Ebony, because I thought the debuff lead is sort of necessary. But now that I'm watching this playback, it's probably not necessary. You could probably get away with this team as a budget build, and as long as you dodge villains, you should be fine. Now, she's taking less damage, but here's the problem with HELA for PvP. She doesn't have iframe ignore. As strange as it is, her third skill that has the counterattack does not have iframe ignore. So not having iframe ignore, not having reflect, not having a revive, the immortality is sort of like a revive, but I still think she is a bit more niche for PvP than people were expecting. She's definitely going to shift the meta back towards villains again. I do think the meta was shifting back towards heroes with all of the Eternals and Sentry, but now it seems like HELA plus Doctor Doom is a really difficult wall to scale, and actually, creates a really big headache for teams that want to run primarily or exclusively villains, because this is kind of stuff is going to happen. And keep in mind that Gilgamesh is actually going to be so much stronger against an enemy Gilgamesh because Hela's buffs are applying to Gilgamesh. And she doesn't even need to be tier 3 in this case if you're just using her as a buff to counter heroes and empower your own villains. So that's the tricky thing with Hela in PvP, because she sort of creates a problem but also offers a solution to it by either appearing or not appearing on the team and shifting the makeup of the rest of the team with her absence or presence. Because essentially, not only do you have the Molecule Man counter, but if we start to see too many Hela teams, players will just gravitate away from heroes, and when they gravitate away from heroes, Hela's buffs become useless. So for example, you know, if you see a team like this out there, obviously the only real threat here is Sentry. So Hela plus 2 villains is an amazing buff, especially, or even Hela plus 2 heroes. It doesn't matter, especially if they're not universals, because you can also ignore Ebony Maw's buffs. But if you start to see a lot of these options, because let's say people want to use Hela to punish heroes, but they don't want to get punished by Hela. They don't want to use have Hela used against them. They start using villain teams like this. Not only is this team extremely susceptible to Molecule Man counter lead, but at this point, if you're just seeing a bunch of these teams, you don't need Hela anymore, because actually this team would then be stronger. And then if this team is stronger, then you can start to reintroduce Sentry. So you sort of see how Hela kind of counters Hela in a weird way, because her buffs apply to all allies but only apply against heroes. If her buffs only applied to villains or something else, then you would have a little bit more of an intricate play. But at this point, there's just going to be, I think there's always going to be a natural equilibrium, and not that many players are actually going to end up using Hela, because it'll just shift all players to just not use heroes and then completely invalidate and waste the slot of Hela as a support buff for PvP. Again, as a standalone, she seems to be better than I expected, so I'm actually excited to even build her further for PvP, but I'm not as big of a fan of having to hunt for specific teams and basically dodge all Dr. Dooms, because she's not going to do well against Doom at all, just in search of good matchups for her. Last but not least, I equipped a crit damage 180 proc obelisk on her, and let's go back in and see what kind of noise she can make versus World Boss Legend. This is stage 25 of Null, where we're trying her out with an obelisk for the first time. We miss our first proc, which is unfortunate. We have Valkyrie support for the much needed ignore dodge and also increased damage to villains. We're going to purposely miss our second proc as well, so that we can power up here and then land and proc here. Very nice. Okay, that was worth the price of admission. So it is very much what I had thought and sort of privately feared. It seems like, this is not my first run as well, I did a couple of practice runs here, but it seems like Hela is going to do very little damage, even if you are nailing her procs on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then her damage furthermore is going to vary on her tier 3 rotation depending on how close, because it seems like a lot of her damage is front loaded to the beginning of the tier 3 skill. So you kind of need to set this up. That was not bad. It's pretty good, actually. It's pretty good. So there you go. She does that in about 50 or 65 seconds. Stage 25 with 1 support and her own lead. She's got, you know, the full ignore dodge striker combo there, the 3 ignore dodge strikers to give her 90%. That's not bad. So she could do stage 25, possibly up to 29 with an obelisk. That starts to sound really good. Now that I say it out loud, that sounds even better. 29 with an obelisk is good. However, there are times when I was playing when I was practicing 29 off camera where I felt like there wasn't much difference in damage whether I hit the proc on the tier 3 skill or I didn't hit the proc. And that sounds weird, but the thing is, it's already giving you a proc. It's already giving you a 150% damage proc. So there may be diminishing returns if you're going up to we're going to 330%, right? If those two things are stacking, it may not be really stacking as well, or it may be that you have to have sort of perfect timing. And as you guys saw, you basically miss every single proc or every other proc besides the 6 skill one, because the 4, unless you cancel it right away and forego all of the hits, you have to basically do 4, cancel 3, cancel 5, and then 5 doesn't have that many hits, right, to proc on in the first place, and she doesn't do any damage with her regular proc. So it's kind of a weird rotation. You're sort of purposely missing your procs to charge up your tier 3, but then you absolutely have to nail the tier 3 proc in order to see the value there, because otherwise I would say give her a rage and let her go nuts and hope for the reforging of that later on, or just build her for PvP and be happy with an above average PvE character for different content plus a leadership, right? Sort of like Doctor Doom, sort of like a more offensive leadership version of Doctor Doom, where he's going to be amazing for you in PvP, and then he can still be pretty good in PvE just because of that insane accumulation. So yeah, Hela's a bit of a head scratcher. I'm going to continue testing her with other builds and seeing what I prefer, but she's really a character that the more you invest into one or the other, the more returns you're going to get. But she's definitely meta. I would say that she's definitely meta. We're definitely going to see her on some lists for something, whether it's PvE or PvP or both. She just seems too strong to be left out of the meta at this point, whether it's, you know, the terrorization of heroes in PvP or the insane damage on Death's Arsenal in PvE. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of the review. Smash the like button if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.